أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين بالقاسم محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا أما بعد فقد قال أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب عليه الصلاة والسلام في خطبته ويقول ولم يبايع حتى شرط أن يؤتيه على البيعة ثمنا فلا ظفرت يد البائع وخزيت أمانة المبتاع فخذوا للحرب أهبتها وأعدوا لها عدتها فقد شب لظاها وعلى سناها واستشعروا الصبر فإنه عدا إلى النصر صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. Inshallah, we're on the last and the third section of sermon number 26 from Nahj al-Balagha. This is just a recap. Section 1 was the age of ignorance. Imam spoke about Zamana Jahiliyat briefly. We went in the details of that. Section 2, or part 2 of this khutbah was about the loneliness of Imam Ali, how he felt that he was all alone, and he expressed that when everybody turned against him and only a handful of people were with him. And then lastly, section 3 is the readiness for the war. This is not loneliness of Imam during the caliphate of the three caliphs. This is the loneliness of Imam, before the battles of, after the battle of Jamal and before the battle of Siffin. So that's where this readiness of war is. So Imam alayhi salatu wasalam, as I recited this segment for you, he says, and this is regarding a settlement between Muawiyah and Amr ibn As. So Imam alayhi salatu wasalam quotes by saying, he did not swear allegiance till he got him agree that he would pay him its price. Meaning who? Amr ibn As did not agree until he got a price for the agreement that was made between him and Muawiyah. The hand of this purchaser of allegiance may not be successful, and this is a prophecy, Imam's ilm ghaib, that it will not be successful and the contract of the seller may face disgrace. Now you should take up arms for war and arrange equipment for it. Its flames have grown high and its brightness has increased. Clothe yourself with patience, for it is the best of victory. So here Imam alayhi salatu wasalam, in a nutshell, if you look at this khutbah, or this segment of the khutbah, Imam alayhi salatu wasalam basically is talking about an incident, an event that took place in the history for sure. While this incident was taking place, many were not siding with Imam, many were going against Imam. But Imam alayhi salatu wasalam gave us a very vivid picture of what was happening. He said, you think, this joint effort between Muawiyah and Amr As is something which is based on honesty and amanat and trust and intelligence and ability to run and govern and so on and so forth. So this was based on a deal that was made, to which the commentators have called the disgraceful political deal. That's what it was. It was nothing more than this political sham that was put together by these two individuals in the history. So in this segment, Imam refers to this disgraceful deal between Amr As and Muawiyah regarding pledging allegiance. He explains that Amr did not pledge allegiance to Muawiyah until he secured a personal benefit in return. Imam says he did not pledge. وَلَمْ يُبَايِعْ حَتَّى شَرَطَ أَنْ يُؤْتِيَ عَلَى الْبَيْعَةِ. Historians have recorded that Imam achieved victory in the Battle of Jamal, It was an open victory for Imam alayhi salatu wasalam. Nobody denies that. He entered Kufa and made it to be the capital of his government, just like Imam Zamana, when he reappears, he will do the same thing. Then Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Bajali, Imam sent him to Sham, Syria, to seek allegiance from Muawiyah. So now, Imam already is, according to them, Khalifa Rashid. His bayat is al-Anan, his khilafat is al-Ilan, and therefore Imam is going to go ahead and send out deputies to go ahead and gain this allegiance from all the governors that are assigned, especially the ones who were troublemakers. One of them was known to be Muawiyah. What he did for the past 25 years, sowing this bad blood and sowing this hatred in the hearts of the people of Sham. So Imam sends his best man in to go ahead and seek allegiance from Muawiyah. However, Muawiyah, who was unwilling to pledge allegiance to Imam, sought counsel in this matter from his brother, who was Utbah ibn Abi Sufyan. And he said to him, Utbah ibn Abi Sufyan said to him, seek the help of Amr ibn As. Don't ask me about it. If you want someone to help you in this regard, Amr ibn As is your man. For he's a very intelligent and insightful man, no doubt. But he was the one who did not submit to the authority of Uthman during his lifetime. So Amr ibn As did not do it over there. So naturally, he will not submit to you unless you offer him a significant price. So Amr ibn As, who already had this maqam, that he was sought out by the earlier khulafa as well, but he did not pay allegiance to Uthman. He said he won't do the same thing to you either unless you go ahead and put a hefty price for it. Right away, he will give in. And he will do it because he's a man of the world, a lover of the worldly gain. Everybody knows that. This is not something which is, hidden knowledge. Everybody knew about it. Just like in Karbala, Imam alayhi salatu wasalam says to Umar Asad that, your relationship to ours, your family relations to ours, your background, all that stuff, you know who I am. You know my father, you know my grandfather. Who better than you knows all that stuff? He said, yes, but the government of Shahr-e-Ray is sweeter. It's far sweeter than anything that you are reminding me of. Imam reminds him of Jannat and Jahannam. He said, no, Shahr-e-Ray is far sweeter than the worldly gain. To which Imam responded by saying, you will not even taste the barley and the wheat of Shahr-e-Ray. And that's what happened. After the event of Karbala, Yazid's promises to Umar Asad that I will give you the government of Shahr-e-Ray, here's the same thing. So Muawiyah wrote a letter to Amr ibn As seeking help on this matter, inviting him to come to Syria. Amr consulted with his sons regarding the proposal. One of the sons, Abdullah, warned him against getting involved in such matters and cautioned him that you will become a mere tool for this, fitna that is being brewed over here. And you'll just be a side figure for Muawiyah, nothing more than that. But you're bigger than that, O father. His other son, Muhammad, encouraged him to go to Sham and join Muawiyah. So now he consults his sons. One says, Abdullah says, don't go. Muhammad says, go. Amr ibn As listens to Muhammad and he goes to Sham. He arrives in Sham. Muawiyah addressed a gathering and he said, Ya Aba Abdullah. And he referred him to his son, Abdullah. أدعوك إلى الجهاد هذا الرجل الذي عصى الله وشق عصى المسلمين وقتل الخليفة وأظهر الفتنة وفرق الجماعة وقطع الرحم. And these words are there to, entice people. Gathering of that sort, Muawiyah is speaking to his folks, and Amr ibn As is standing right next to him. O Abu Abdullah, I'm calling you to wage battle against this man who has disobeyed Allah, shattered the unity of Muslims, killed the Caliph Uthman, stirred up fitna, scattered the community, and severed family ties. Abu Abdullah, of course, is the kunyat of Amr ibn As. Though, he knows what is going on. Amr ibn As knows he's not a child. He knows why he's been called upon. Through this emotionally charged and politically calculated speech and rhetoric, Muawiyah sought to paint Imam Ali as a source of division. That's what he did. Aiming to recruit Amr and his political support under the guise of defending the unity and the order of Muslim Ummah. Same thing what Yazid does many years later. He gathers Muslim Ummah for the sake of unity. After the events of Karbala, he needs a scapegoat to go ahead and attack Medina and to attack Kaaba. He uses what? Ya li Tharat Uthman, who is going to go ahead and avenge the blood of the great caliph. Amr, who was well aware of Muawiyah's lies and knew him better than anyone else at that time, and knew that none of these descriptions applied to Imam Ali, someone who sowed discord amongst the community, someone who killed Uthman. He knows Ali had nothing to do with any of this thing. Turned to Muawiyah and said, who do you mean by this person? That you're saying so-and-so has done this and this and this, and we should wage war against him. Muawiyah replied, I mean Ali. This is where Amr ibn As speaks the truth maybe for the first time. He said, Wallahi, ma anta wa aliyo bijamli ba'irin laysa laka hijratuhu wala sabiqatuhu wala suhbatuhu wala jihaduhu wala fiqhuhu wala ilmuhu wallahi inna lahu ma'a dhalika lahzan fil harb laysa li ahadin ghayri. He said, by God, you and Ali are not even two sides of the same camel. This is an analogy which is being given. Two sides of the camel. You do not have his migration. He migrated. You didn't even do that. Nor his precedence in Islam. He embraced Islam before you did. Nor his companionship with Rasulullah, the way how he was close to Rasulullah. Nor his jihad, what he was known for, killing people in Badr and Uhud and so on and so forth. Nor his jurisprudence, nor his knowledge. And by God, in addition to all that, he has a striking prowess in war that no one else possesses. Full of fadail of Imam Ali. This one sentence. You see, you're comparing him. By God, none of these things that you have mentioned are to him. Then he added, despite all this and the dangers it brings, if I pledge allegiance to you to fight him, what reward will you give me? Come right to the point. Be straightforward. I'm willing to sell my soul and my deen and my madhab and my religion for a piece of land. Muawiyah said, whatever you ask. Amr said, after victory, give me the governorship of Misr, Egypt. Muawiyah paused and said, I don't like the Arabs say that you pledge allegiance to me for the worldly gain. Now he's trying to play him back. He said, what would people say? You ask for a piece of land in return for the allegiance? Amr said, leave such talks aside. What matters most that you give me the governorship so that we can go ahead and have this pact together and attack our common enemy. Finally, after consulting with his brother, Muawiyah surrendered to Amr's proposal and signed agreement with him. It is worth noting here that Amr ibn As, insistence on gaining governorship of Egypt, that being a very strategical place at that time, aside from the fact that Egypt was, one of the most important centers of power and wealth at that time. Even in this day and age, if you look at the strategic position of Egypt, so much can be gained from that country if the true leadership was there, as far as being a front for Muslims and the basis of it and the placement of it, all those things. It's just amazing where it is located. Was because he had previously conquered Egypt during the caliphate of the second caliph and had personally witnessed its beauty, vast revenues, and material blessings. So Amr ibn As is well aware of what lies in Egypt, and therefore he's asking for the governorship. For the entire duration of Umar's caliphate, Amr served as the governor of Egypt at that time. But even after that, he governed the land for many years during the Caliphate of Uthman until Uthman eventually dismissed him. So there was this fire between him and Uthman. Imam alayhi salatu wasalam, nonetheless, in the next segment says what? فَلَا زَفِرَتْ يَدُ الْمُبَايِعِ وَخَزِيَتْ أَمَانَةُ الْمُبْتَاءِ. He says in the second, may the hand of the seller never reach victory, and may the wealth of the buyer end in disgrace. Now this could be a dua by Imam, or this could be, like tabbat yada abi lahabin wa tab. Right? If you translate this ayat, tabbat yada abi lahabin wa tab, is sort of like a dua. May the hands of Abu Lahab perish. May he perish, right? Seems like a dua. But at the same time, this is something which happened. Tabbat yada abi lahabin wa tab. Allah is not making a mere dua. When the ayat of Quran is revealed, it is talking about what? That this will happen to Abu Lahab. Imam says, may the hand of the seller never reach victory, and may the wealth of the buyer end in disgrace. So it could be merely a dua by Imam Ali, or actually a prophecy that this is what I'm telling you is bound to happen. So in reality, this statement is a curse directed against both buyer and the seller. Seems more like it. Just like tabbat yada, this is the same way, a curse upon both of them. It is true that Muawiyah fulfilled his promise, granted Amr ibn As what he asked for, the governorship of Egypt, but his rule lasted only a few years, and death did not grant Amr ibn As much respite either. And then, other places we reported from him toward the end of his life show that he was fearful of his ultimate fate, and that inner satisfaction and peace of mind was never there. Sometimes I don't know if it's ever, you felt like it, that you've gained something, but you still feel the loss. I haven't really gained anything, because there's no inner satisfaction in what you gain, in what you got. I'd rather let it go. You got something, you should be proud of it, but there's really something which is lacking and which is missing. Although Muawiyah, through this move, strengthened the foundation of his rule, we know that ultimately his government ended in disgrace as well. There wasn't anyone amongst the Ansar and Muhajirin who really appreciated the rulership of Muawiyah. In fact, al-Mu'mineen spoke against him. The same al-Mu'mineen who, fronted Imam Ali in Battle of Jamal, she opposed him. And she also, opposed his appointment of his son to be the next ruler. And that probably eventually led to her demise as well. While people believe that she died naturally, no, it was probably Muawiyah's doing that took her life. So all the beloved figures of the companions from the Muhajirin, from Ansar, and the well-known and the pious individual distanced themselves from Muawiyah. You don't find that anyone stuck by with him. Only those who sold and had some sort of something in return or promised something in return. Same thing with Yazid. He was able to gather people like Shimr, Ibn Ziyad, Umar ibn Sa'd, and similar figures were disgraced. Nobody really appreciates or sides with them, while their fathers were very well-known figures in Islam. So in their place, the remnants of Islam's former enemies and the leaders of the pre-Islamic ignorance gathered around him, and what remained was a tyrannical regime whose foundation was built on murder, intimidation, threats, and the violation of sacred principles. There's also a possibility that this statement is not a curse. As I mentioned, that Imam, when he says over here, may his hand, the seller's hand perish, possibility that it is not a curse, rather a declarative sentence. Imam is declaring this. This is something which will happen, a statement of reality. When Imam says this, may this happen, it's a statement of reality. He's declaring this. This is at points that to the truth that one selling religion for worldly gain is never accompanied with true victory. Imam is saying you might see him flourish. You might see him, gain physical power. You might see him on top of the throne. But this is not a true victory. Yazid was sitting on the throne as well. He was pumping his chest after having killed Imam Hussein as well. And people thought that Imam died, Yazid won. This was the short-term view of the people, right? That's what people kept on saying to the Ahl Haram, the captives, how Allah disgraced you, how your family was treated, how they were killed. You were better off paying allegiance. You didn't do so. And look what happened, the disgrace. So everybody was looking at it from short-sightedness that, yes, Yazid won, Hussein lost. But 14 centuries have passed. You don't find anyone saying Yazid won and Hussein lost. Why? Far-sightedness. So Imam, when he says this, that even with this, apparent rulership, when this is based on someone selling their religion for the worldly gain, it's never accompanied with the victory. It might seem like it to you, but that's not the case. In such transactions, the seller suffers a loss and the buyer ends up in disgrace. This concept is mentioned in the Quran on 2 occasions. Surah Baqarah, ayat number 16, as well as Surah Baqarah, ayat number 286, ayat number 86. أُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ اشْتَرَوُا الضَّلَالَةَ بِالْهُدَىٰ فَمَا رَبِحَتْ تِجَارَتُهُم. So the ones who purchased misguidance in exchange for guidance, their trade did not benefit them. Or أُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ اشْتَرَوُا الْحَيَاةَ الدُّنْيَا بِالْآخِرَةِ فَلَا يُخَفَّفُ عَنْهُمُ الْعَذَابُ وَلَا هُمْ يُنصَرُونَ. The ones who have purchased a worldly life at the cost of the hereafter. Of course, these ayats are for us, you and I, that we should never trade anything for the hereafter. So Imam ﷺ uses the word trust over here, amana, in the words of Imam Ali, referring to the governorship of Egypt or the governance of Egypt and the rights of the Muslims in that region, point to the truth that rulership over people is a divine trust. It's an amanat from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not for people to be using that as a token, as a tool to go ahead and deceive others. It must be held only by the righteous and the pure people. Look at the character of these people that you're appointing. Even the third caliph had to remove him. If that person was disgraceful in the eyes of the third caliph, then what do you think this person is going to have value in front of Amir al-Mu'mineen? Those who turn it into a tool for personal pleasure, self-interest, and desires are in reality betrayers of the divine trust, and their actions ultimately lead to disgrace. For this reason, many commentators in their interpretation of this verse, إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَأْمُرُكُمْ أَن تُعَدُّ الْأَمَانَاتِ إِلَىٰ أَهْلِهَا, one of the ayat of Quran that reflects on the concept of returning the amanat and the trust back to its rightful owners, have considered governance and authority, the wilaya, as either the primary or the clear example of the divine trust from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why when we talk about the concept of wilaya, we keep this wilaya in the concept of divinity. That is a divine authority passed down. So when you say, أَطِيعُوا اللَّهَ وَأَطِيعُوا الرَّسُولَ وَأُولُو الْأَمْرِ مِنْكُمْ إِنَّمَا وَلِيُّكُمُ اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا الَّذِينَ يُقِيمُونَ الصَّلَاةَ وَيُؤْتُونَ الزَّكَاةَ وَهُمْ رَاكِعُونَ. These two ayat, which are used in concept of vesting authority after Allah and Rasul, is within in this line of divinity. And therefore, this wilayat is there. Continuing with his speech, Imam, towards the last segment, he says, now the situation is such. Muawiyah and Amr ibn As have put their heads together. I've tried everything. I've tried to counsel. I've tried to work with them. I've tried to warn them. I've done all the preliminaries. But they have agreed to stand up against me. They have agreed to form an alliance against the legitimate Khalifa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. According to you all, he is the fourth Khalifa, so I'm the legitimate Khalifa. They have formed an alliance. We've done everything to convince them not to start this war, not to go ahead and cause further division and fitna. We've already gone through Jamal. You saw what happened in the battle of Jamal. Now you want to go ahead and have another internal battle? So Imam says, well, situation is such that the rulers of Sham, in order to strengthen the foundation of their powers, are ruthlessly bartering away the lands of the Muslims and exchanging heavy bribes. You must prepare yourself for battle and ready your weapon, for the fire of war has been kindled. By them, they have kindled it. They have lit it up. And its flames have risen high. فَخُذُوا لِلْحَرْبِ أُهْبَتَهَا وَأَعِدُّ لَهَا أُدَّتَهَا فَقَدْ شَبَّ لَظَّاهَا وَعَلَى سَنَاهَا. This expression shows that Imam has exhausted all peaceful means to put an end to this opposition and hypocrisy, especially from the rulers of Sham. But when none of these efforts worked, none of them served to be effective, Imam did not jump to the battle right away, and the conspiracy grew more intense and more complex by the day. He gave the command to prepare for war. He said, that's it. Last resort is to go to war with this man, because the flames of conflict have already been kindled by the enemy, and the signs are clearly in front of us. So in Islamic history, also bears witness that the enemies of Imam and the group of hypocrites were swiftly preparing themselves for war. This is again, Imam, if he hadn't acted at that moment, this would have been even a bigger blow to Muslim Ummah than Siffin ended up being, right? Imam had the upper hand in Siffin. Imam had the upper hand against Muawiyah. If it wasn't for the tactic used by Amr As, Imam would have killed and gotten rid of Muawiyah and his people. So therefore, these tactics that were being used and the letters they wrote to Talha and Zubair, and to serve as the further evidence of this, in the end, Imam concludes his speech by pointing to one of the most important factors of victory by saying what? وَاسْتَشْعِرُوا الصَّبْرَ فَإِنَّهُ أَدْعَى إِلَى النَّصْرِ. Make patience and steadfastness your inner garment. And this is again peak of eloquence. While we are focusing on the historical aspect of this khutbah, this is where the peak of eloquence and Imam's sense of Arabic literature comes into play, and why Syed Razi chose this segment, although there was more in this context which Imam has said. He says what? He said, وَاسْتَشْعِرُوا, make patience and steadfastness your inner garment, for it is the strongest means of victory. Considering the word istish'ar, وَاسْتَشْعِرُوا, comes from the root word sha'ara, sheen, ain, and ra, meaning your inner garment. Sha'ar, is referred to your aapki jo jild hoti hai, your skin, as opposed to dithar, which is your outer garment. So outer garment, you can see this abba, this qaba, but there's an inner garment that all of us are wearing that is not seen by anyone. It becomes clear that patience and endurance must be deeply embedded within the soul of insan. So Imam did not say make your sabr be the outer garments, make your sabr to be what? Your inner garments, wrapping the spirit of resilience to shield it against the storms of hardship. And this is, of course, a historical end to this khutbah where Amirul Mu'mineen warned the people of this alliance, and this alliance that happened between Amr As and Muawiyah. This khutbah ends with this third segment, this third part, where the beginning was the mention of Jahiliyyat, second was the loneliness of Imam ﷺ, and third, Imam ﷺ goes to war. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.